Okay, we got called out to a house here that has a couple of water drops showing on the ceiling, and they believe it is coming from the air conditioning, so let's go take a look. Okay, looks like whoever was here before had unclogged the drain, but it did fill the pan. I can see this piece of wood is the thickness of 1 2x4 higher than over here where the pan sits. So the platform, which is maybe a 1/2 inch thick or less, is sitting on top of the same wood that this is sitting on top of. So that means this part of that pipe is 1 inch higher than there, where it comes out of the pan. So it's not real loose, but it is got it kind of angled up. Apparently where it can leak out of there. But that doesn't look like where it's leaked. It looks like it leaked up here in the corner. Because around there is where everything's wet, and this is a folded pan, so it shouldn't leak in the corners. All right, so I've decided not to cut. I think that's just a temporary piece of wood when they were building it, but I decided not to cut that. And I'm just gonna put a cap here and probably replace all this. But let's look at how far off this was. And we can see that it's loose as well. So to get that laying level, or to where it has fall all the way out, I think it would have to be up like that, you know. So what must have happened before the change out was done is, because this is a newer unit, the pan before probably sat up on blocks. And that's probably why there's those 2 4-inch solid blocks left over there. And this was not terribly loose, but it was definitely at an angle which could cause it to leak out of the bottom right there. It's a good looking gasket. So, but the pipe running uphill could tilt it slightly. You would think the pan would give, but this wood right here really isn't wet, but it's wet over there. So that sort of points towards the corner of that pan is bad. Let's put a new fitting in there. and have the protection from the float switch. I like that better anyway. I'm not crazy about the pan being piped off. You can find in some of my other videos where the pan was piped off and the people don't think it's anything wrong, and you know, it's supposed to drip over a front porch or a front door or a back porch somewhere, you know, to where you'll notice the water. But I've seen big rust stains down the back or the side of a house, or some of them can be a rental house and people just don't care and they just figure it's supposed to be that way. And it can happen until the pan rusts out and it hits the ceiling. So this way to me is better. Everybody's got their own way. I like this better, to where the pan will fill up, the float switch turns it off, and we come take care of a problem. I'm a little worried about that corner over there, that pan, but I looked at it as close as I could. It just doesn't seem to, you know, to be able to leak. Anything's possible. And it could run down in the furnace and run over in that plenum out to the edge there. But I don't see any sign of that happening either. So I think when you have a plenum off the side of the furnace, maybe you should have a bigger pan. But tell you what, there's no such thing as going too far in protecting a secondary drain system and protecting ceilings. When you wet one or two people's ceiling and have to pay for it, you'll learn that you know, there's no such thing as going too far to protect that from happening. So anyway, I think this will be okay now, and it is draining out of the primary pretty well at this point. So this is the way I'm going to leave it. Okay, so the reason I think the pan was elevated before is that piece of wood's been there forever, since the house was built. So this pipe was certainly not running uphill from day one, I wouldn't think. And these two blocks were already up here, and they look old and dirty. So I'm gonna say those two blocks were under the original pan, lined up with those two, lifting it up off the platform. And that's why originally the secondary pipe was not running uphill like it is now. That definitely should have been seen by the installers doing the change out here, but you know, a lot of times they're interested in getting in and getting out and just flying through the job, and this kind of stuff happens. Still a little bit worried about this corner. This is just where all the water migrated to. I don't think it came through this plenum, but that's possible. Somehow this whole side over here is really wet. Like I say, these folded corners just don't usually give us trouble. It's the same thing with here. I guess it could leak, but they usually don't. Another thing I noticed is, in order to meet the flue pipe at the correct height, because it's probably screwed into the flashing up there, so in order to meet this correct height on this flue pipe, it is shimmed here. So that tells me that the total of these two shims added together is not near as much as this would have been. So in order to have left these blocks under the pan and then those blocks under the furnace, that would have thrown off the height and required you to get on the roof and adjust the flue, which I'm really against that. I don't really want to fool with that if we can get out of it. So I would be okay with, you know, whatever else you did other than overlooking the secondary pipe running uphill and possibly cocked at an angle, which can let water escape out of the bottom of the gasket. That's what looks like happened here to me. So probably leave this running and ride back by here in a couple of days just to get another look at it. But you know, water can do some tricky stuff. It can leak down through the furnace and not even be the not even be taking the path that you think it is, and sometimes when that happens, it can get out through that plenum, and then obviously the plenum's over on the outside of the pan. So got to keep our eyes on this one a little more carefully. I'd feel better if this had like a 36 by 40 pan instead of a 36 pan here, and it could come in a little closer this way, and it could go out beyond this plenum that's on the side. But you would think that it's not cut to the bottom. It's pretty close. So, well, water has its magical ways of doing what it wants to do. That's for sure. This fitting is definitely tight, so it didn't get out up here. So hopefully what we've done will protect us in the future here. All right, one more thing before we leave. We'll just, for good measure, give this thing another good flush just to see if anything comes out of the primary here. Okay, we got a little bit of ugliness there.